We're up in the part of Italy called the Lombardy region, and guess who's in a breakaway group at the moment? No less than a man called Lombardi with Velo. And there's the British champion, Julian Wynne, who was active way back down the road, stirring things up to keep the points away from competitors chasing after that blue jersey of Magnus Backstedt, which on paper he certainly got right the way through to the time trial tomorrow. But there was a chance that perhaps Magnus might have gone for the combativity award. He didn't quite turn out that way. So Julian Wynne, I think, was probably being given a bit of a carte blanche, a white card to go off and down to do what he wanted to do. And speaking last night to Magnus Backstedt, he was very appreciative of the help he's had from Julian Wynne. Magnus living as he does in Cardiff, well, 50% in Cardiff, 50% in Belgium, spending much time training with Julian, who comes from Abergavenny, and we're just been seeing the British champion on our screens. Great to see him in the Tour as we come towards this final stage, which is full of intrigue. None of us, well, Sean is the expert, and I haven't got a clue at all as to what the heck's going on, because they're going off all over the place. We've got Velo down the road. Mazzoloni starts to go here. He's a teammate of Garzelli, and Garzelli is 2 seconds adrift of Popovic on the general classification. So I think today, if this lot scream in, there may or may not be a bit of an attack further down there. But Mazzoloni's now getting stuck in. Sean, I'm bemused totally. I'm easily bemused, by the way, but what is going on?
Well, I think you know, for some of the riders here, it's an advantage for Svoboda. First of all, well, he's the one who's losing out, because this is 25-man group, and it's always difficult to close that down, and they don't seem to be doing that, because the last gap time check we got was 2:05. But for the likes of Garzelli, for the points classement, it's good for him that there's a lot of riders up the road, because Svoboda don't get any points today with this number of riders away. So for him, for the points jersey, he can, you know, stay up there, you know, 10 points behind Simoni, and in the time till tomorrow, if he can, you know, do a better ride than Simoni, well, then he's, you know, he's in for a shout for the points classement. So for him, it's a good thing. But for Svoboda, he's the one who's the big loser at the moment if they can't rectify this and pull it back. And with 15 k's to go, you know, they were over 2 minutes, as I said, down with a group of you know, there were 25 riders originally, and we still have roughly about that. We have the Lombardi and Velo out the front here, and then we have that rest of the 22 or 23 riders chasing, and as I said, over 2 minutes now back to the main group. It's hard to see the bunch coming back on this group.
And there they are. That's the jerseys of the Lampre-Daikin team, the blue with the purpley bits, and here they are mixed up with the Psycho team, shepherding the pink jersey towards the finish of Simoni. Involved also here is the riders from the Denardi Kolpak team, with Honchar quite up in a reasonable position on the overall classification. British Charlie Vega, if you get the number 48 on your screen, he's driving hard and working there, because Honchar on the overall classification going to time trial tomorrow just can't afford to lose any time at all, because Honchar could probably improve his position on the overall classification. We're watching a race within a race as we're going in towards this is the penultimate stage of the race. He's a bit down on general classification, but it may be something that he could pull back tomorrow on that run-in on the time trial into Milan. But these two riders looking for a chance to get a stage victory, but neither of these two, when it comes to time trial tomorrow, have a catch chance in hell. I shouldn't say that, because I love cats. They have no chance at all of getting themselves up there into the overall classification. So this is the Lombardi, by the way, this morning coming into the stage. He's way off the general classification. He's right down on the overall time, so there's no doubt about it that this is a chance for him to show that with Cipollini, I don't know if Cipollini's there at the start. We haven't seen him yet, but if he is, because he's been not very well since he had that crash, but let's say that if Lombardi is there and Cipollini turns up, it'd be nice to see his lead-out man getting a stage in his own right. But Honchar's team, the Denardi Kolpak team, looking after Honchar. He's 9th this morning, 16 minutes and 28 seconds down. Belli was way back behind there. So all they've got to do, I think, is just keep within that pack and just make sure that, in fact, no, Mazzoloni's gone down the road, hasn't he, Sean? And Mazzoloni this morning was at 21 minutes and 45 seconds. Honchar was at 16:28. So there's, what, 5 minutes between them. But I don't think he's going to pull that lot back in this break.
Well, I don't think we will see that amount of time being lost, because the Seiko team are quite active on the front, and we also see the Denardi team. So there's always places that in the general classement teams are going to be trying to preserve and to control, and that's why we're seeing the Denardi team probably working up front. So I don't think we will ever see that great gap of around the 5 minutes getting to that. So I don't think it will happen. But again, a big group like that, it's always dangerous when you leave them get away, and if there's not somebody who's riding for something in the general classement, well, then it can grow very quickly with 25 men up front.
Lombardi, amazingly, going for a Kingdom Managed competition doesn't often happen, as here Mazzoloni on the right hand side, and I think it's Lanfranchi there with that breakaway group. Lombardi and Velo driving their way over the top of the Kingdom Managed competition. It's not very often that a sprinter gets a Kingdom Managed award, and he now, together with Velo, are pressing on. The last time I remember this happened, as the rest of the field are coming through under that banner, that little green triangle, which shows that is the final climb of this year's 2003 86th Tour of Italy. The climbing's over and done with. The man in the green jersey, Freddy Gonzalez, doesn't need to breathe a sigh of relief. He's got enough points in the bag to keep that jersey and be up there today and again tomorrow as the winner of that competition. Here the riders from Denardi in the blue, driving hard to make sure, that said earlier, that Honchar doesn't get into any problems. He's a great time trialist, and possibly tomorrow with Pelazzotti just about 2 minutes ahead of him, perhaps that he might be able to climb one step up. But these two riders heading in towards the finish. Off the top of this climb, it's a long drag down for another 6 Ks, I suppose, or semi-drag, before we get to a bit of a blip before we get into the finish at Contenou, as the field, well, they've got their work cut out. They're coming up here, the main pack, towards that climb. The final climb, they've now gone across it and down the other side. I think the last time I remember a specialist sprinter getting any points in the Kingdom Managed competition was when Marcel Wust, who has now retired from the scene after a horrific crash which left him blind in one eye, and he went very fast out of the start of the Tour de France when we're down at Futurescope. He just didn't tell anybody, but instead of going out with a time trial bike, it was the time trial stage of the start of the Tour de France. There was a little bit of a blip, and within about, I don't know, Sean will probably know better than I do, about 7 or 8 kilometres from the start. Not a hard one, but all these chaps turned up with those very specialist time trial bikes for the time trial, which, memory serves me correct, was run by David Miller, and upturned Marcel Wust, and he kept his bike under wraps, and it was a straight out road bike like this, and he went like stink. He went over the top of the first climb. He got the Kingdom Managed jersey, and either the next day or the day after, he won a sprint, and I've never seen a Kingdom Managed jersey being in the sprint on a flat stage. So you could never there's no law laid down, is there, Sean, in the way the sport evolves, eh?
No, there's certainly not, and again, it's a calculation. Wurst had that well calculated, that he was going to ride to the bottom of the hill in the prologue and then just go for it, where the big ones who are going for the times that they have to go from right from the start at 100%. So he had that worked out, and when you can do that, well then in a short climb it can happen, as we see Lombardi here getting the GPM from Velo.
A sprinter getting points in the Kingdom Managed competition. Marcel Wust, eat your heart out. He's a great guy, isn't he, Marcel? We meet him from time to time, and been working with the team coach. I haven't found out yet whether he's going to be. In fact, when I get back, I have a chance to phone him up to see whether he's with the new Bianchi setup, Marcel, because he was with the team coast. And as we're looking down here at number 25 on the screen, that's Lanfranchi. He's the other 50% of the Panaria team, because Figueres and Lanfranchi have made it through. They're down to 2 riders, down to 1 only is the team from Lotto Derma with Koos Murenhold. Koos, winner of one of the opening stages in the Tour Down Under in Adelaide about 3 years ago. They say he's a lonely figure sitting at his table in the evening having a meal, and they're down to just a couple of cars, a Swanyer, a mechanic and something else. But surely when he gets back after this race, then he will receive a hero's welcome to survive the race for all the problems they've had. And by the way, it's no easy sort of next 2 or 3 weeks, take time off and rest, because talking to Magnus Backstedt last night, I said, okay, Magnus, big part of it on Sunday night. No, he said, David, I'm going straight out because he's going up to ride the Tour of Germany, so he's got to fly out, and then I think it starts on either Tuesday or Wednesday. He has no time to rest. So I think I think Scott Sunderland's going with him too as well. Whack straight out from here, up the Tour of Germany, and then off they go there again all round there. So I think probably Magnus was put in the frame for that before they realised he's going to get the blue jersey, but there's no chance for him to celebrate that. But surely after the Tour of Germany he will go back either to Belgium or Cardiff. I hope it goes back to Cardiff. I'm not sure whether Magnus, I'll try and find out if he's going to ride the Swedish Championship, which I think is mixed up with the Swedish, Norwegians and Danes all had the same championship together. But whoops, I've heard about biting the bullet, but biting your gold chain is something else.
And what a battle we're having here between these two groups, Lombardi and Velo.
That must mean something, that locket. Sean, what do you think?
Yes, I think it does. But we see Manzoli and Figueras, they are coming back to our two leaders. So it's interesting to see if they can close this gap down.
Stay with us. My goodness, it's going to be a cracking race here. On both sides, the cameraman has just popped up. It's not like two parts of spectacle. On the left-hand side are the two leaders, Lombardi and Velo. Velo's in the blue and white. Lombardi is in the stripy gear of the Cipollini's team, the Domenica Vacanzi Elitron, and they're being chased down by Mazzoloni. And is it Figueras coming up or Lanfranchi?
Figueras.
Figueras.
Yes.
Oh.
And Manzoloni, of course, we've seen him quite a lot the last number of days. Yeah. He's been doing a tremendous amount of work for his leader. We've seen him, on the climbs. He's been very, very active for Garzelli, and so he's riding very strong as well. And we see him, they're closing down the gap. Actually, I think they will come back, to join up these two leaders with about coming up with the 7 kilometre mark to go. I think we will see a 4-man group pretty quickly.
But only 32 seconds back, the group containing Pantani has been driving this. If you've just been joining us towards the end of this race, and I understand that British Eurosport might have been recording it, and you could be listening to this delayed after the race, because we went to Tim Henman and Juan Carlos Ferrara for the French Open, and thanks then to Simon Reid and his colleagues for covering that race for us, game for us. If you're picking up late, then if you get miffed about it, it's nothing much has happened until we got into these final last 30 kilometres when Britain's Julian Wynne hammered off down the road after an amazing, I don't know why, trip off the front by the rider from the Columbus Italia team, a chap called Liliano. He nipped off down the road. Julian Wynne erupted. He went down the road. It began to split. Then Pantani drove it with his Mercatanuno team, and they got like 3 or 4 riders into a group of some 25 riders. They split the thing because the pink jersey wasn't bothered about chasing it down. Eddie Mazzoloni went across to there, and this is absolute mayhem. The last, 25, 30 kilometres for a sort of, I've been working in Eurosport now for 15 years. I've seen some fascinating racing, but never on the penultimate day of a tour what we're seeing today. Sean, you've had the experience of riding these races. Is this normal for the last but one day?
No, normally this is not the normal procedure going into this. The second last day, we would see him riding along, and it would be controlled by the sprinters' teams. But I suppose a lot of the sprinters have gone home, and that is the problem here. There's not many teams want to control the race as we would have usually, and these riders went away on that drag before the Inter-Giro, and when they got away with such a big number, as I said, there was riders always going to attack, because with 25 riders it never or very rarely works out, and there was riders going to attack, try and get away with a group of 3 or 4 riders, and that's what we've seen here. We had our 2 riders, Lombardi and Velo, and then we had the other 2 getting out of that original 25-man group, Manzoli and Figueras. And we see Manzolini, when he came up there, he didn't hang about. The very minute they joined the 2 leaders, he attacked immediately.
Mazzolini, amazing guy, because here he is, you see him ploughing along on your screens right now. Yesterday, in the stage up to Casta del Toce, which was the last of the big mountaintop finishes, we've had 5 in the Tour of Italy so far. They did 239 kilometres yesterday, the longest stage, about 150 miles, with 5 k's to go. He's after them, and yesterday, Eddie Mazzolini finished in 3rd spot behind Simoni, who won the stage, by some a few seconds ahead of Frigo, and then in came Mazzoloni and so on after that. So a tremendous day's racing into yesterday in the mountain, that big long drag up there, and he's getting back in the action right now on this stage. So the gap as far as Mazzoloni is concerned, general classification, he's 11th overall, 21 minutes 45 seconds down. That's no great threat to anybody out there, but this guy's come back. He was past bronze medalist in the Junior World Champion many years ago. His father named him Eddie after the great Eddie Merckx, and Eddie would do many things. Sean, you know more about than I do about Eddie Merckx. This is courage, isn't it, to go and do things like this, eh?
Yes, it certainly is, but I think he's riding very strong at the end of this Giro. As I said, you know, he's been very active up the front of the bunch. For Garzelli, you know, towing the bunch along on the climbs, and he was very strong yesterday as well. We see on the last climb, actually, when Pantani was attacking, I reckon it was him who went up and spoke to Pantani, like, to be, you know, not to be going these sudden accelerations, because he was killing that group and he was blowing to pieces. So he, you know, he's riding very strong. As we see here, when he started chasing down Lombardi and Velo, they came back on him very, very quickly. And when he came up to him, the surprising thing that he didn't just wait for a little bit to recover, he attacked immediately.
Do you think he can stay away?
Well, I think you know, the way he's riding, and inside the 5 kilometre mark, the way he's been, you know, going along, he seems to be very, very strong. I think you know, it's going to be difficult for the guys behind, because there's always a guy who's not going to give it 100%, and especially with Lombardi there, the other two guys are probably, you know, going to say, well, he's very fast in the sprint. If we take him up to Manzolini, well, he's going to beat us in the sprint anyway. So I would say he will hang out there.
Keep your fingers crossed for Eddie, because he's one of the stalwarts of the domestics who work their socks off for their team leaders, and he's been helping Garzelli. We've seen him mounting, we saw he rode yesterday. It says on his shorts, the advantage. Well, we've been watching the tennis from Roland Garros on a separate monitor, those who've been watching it, and even perhaps those who are coming back to watch tennis later on and picking up with Eurosport's coverage of the cycling. Advantage who? Advantage at the moment for Mazzoloni as he powers his way over this climb in those final few kilometres in towards the stage finish today. It's the last road stage in terms of bunch start and bunch finish. So Lombardi, is he stuffed?
No, he's going, actually. He's actually attacked there from the two other ones, from Velo and Figueras. He's actually left them, and he's coming across actually to Manzolini, which is surprising, because Manzolini was going very, very fast. So Lombardi is, you know, not giving up easy here, and he's giving it everything to try and get back up to Manzolini.
Mazzoloni has said many years ago that one race he would like to win would be the Milan-San Remo. We're just north of Milan, where the Milan-San Remo starts. We're going to be something around about 40 kilometres north of Milano, where we're going to have the stage finish tomorrow. As now with 3 Ks to go, Lombardi comes after it. We're in the plain of Lombardy. Lombardi it is that takes over from Mazzoloni, who said he would like to win one day the Tour of Lombardy, which goes through here and works its way out through those lovely flatlands we've seen and the mountains ahead. So an interesting combination here, and unfortunately though, surely, Sean, if Mazzolini takes Lombardi to finish, it's a foregone conclusion. How would you see it, eh?
Yes, I think Lombardi definitely should be the fastest in the sprint, but is he going to take him to the finish? Maybe he will ride, you know, up to the last kilometre and then just sit on him and try and attack him. But it's going to be very difficult for him to get away from Lombardi, because when you get inside the last, certainly inside the last kilometre, the very minute he will attack, you know, Lombardi is going to be immediately in his wheel. And as we see here now, he's not, you know, overexcited to take the front again. He's leaving Lombardi do quite a lot of the riding on the front.
But there's some more guys not far behind.
Well, that is a problem for Lombardi. You know, he's got to keep the thing going, because the other two, Figueras and Velo, they are not far behind at all. As we see him here, they're coming up very quickly. So Lombardi has to, you know, he has to ride on and keep the thing going. And with Manzanoli in the wheel, it's a difficult one to calculate. And again,
they're losing out here, aren't they? Sure?
Manzolini is not. he's not going to do any of the pulling at all. As we see, he's just staying in the wheel of Lombardi for the moment, and it's a difficult one for Lombardi, because with Figueras and Velo coming up, I think we're going to see a 4-man group in the lead again.
They're there, they've got him.
And Velo goes in the attack. Of course, a lot of this group is going to look at Lombardi to do all the chasing, because he's the one, who is by far the best sprinter of this 4-man leading group.
They go down with a sharp, not too sharp left-hander. They swing round in a big sort of hairpin in towards the finish today. It's not a bad finish really from that point of view, as this lot begin to sort themselves out. It's very much the sort of terrain for a man like Lombardi, in the stripy jersey, looking like a zebra on 2 wheels. There in the orange jersey, Figueras, and the big bunch are coming at them now. There Martin Gruen is saying, get the heck out of it. He's not trying to swim, he's just flapping his arms saying, get that lot out of the way, because between these 4 guys there's a load of traffic, eh?
Yes, it looked that the group is coming up very quickly from behind, but I think it's going to be too late, because we're just about to start the sprint at the moment, and Lombardi in a perfect position in the wheel of Velo. I think Lombardi is the best position at the moment, and he's by far the best sprinter.
As Mazzoloni in the yellow, Lombardi's in the stripy jerseys, then the orange is Figueras, and then in the blue and white is Velo. They come charging down towards us 75 minutes ago. Lombardi's trying for this one. Has he got it? Yes, he has.
Lombardi, Mazzoloni, Figueras and Velo.
Oof.
But Lombardi definitely, he walked it very well there. You could see him. He was, staying in the second position. He always was looking over his shoulder to see there was nobody going to come from behind in the attack. Of course, he's a very experienced rider, a very good track rider, and you could see that in the final run-in, the way that he was preparing his sprint.
In some ways, Sean, you led out the great Freddie Mertens for a long time. Eventually, when the lead-out man gets a victory, it must be rather, some reward, eh?
Yes, well, it's great for those guys to get a victory, because it gives them, that extra morale boost, and when they're, leading out their team leader or their team sprinter for 80 or 90% of the season, and they get into a position where they can win a stage in a big tour. A fabulous victory for Lombardi here.
So when did it happen to you, when you got the freedom?
Well, I got a bit of freedom quite early when I joined Freddie Martins. My second year with Martins in the Tour of France. I actually got into a break and I pulled off a stage victory in my first Tour de France.
That's Sean Kelly as the gallop comes here. Well, not the gallop, but the riders here in the red jersey round about the pink jersey of Simone. Bring him in here towards the finish. We have the time trial. We're going, I think, straight from here, those who are watching our international coverage, towards the Roland Garros as the main pack comes in here. And we've heard the insight of sprinting, insight of tactics on this Tour of Italy from Sean Kelly. We'll still be with you tomorrow for the time trial. I think we're going to gallop rather quickly, hence the reason to try and wrap the thing, as Mazzoloni here being interviewed by one of the most delightful, apart from the delightful Christy Anderson, of the people we've got on the tour. We hope to catch up with Christy tomorrow to watch this sprint again as Lombardi launch himself away. The man who's the lead-out rider for Cipollini has his own day as he comes into the penultimate stage, the last sprint you're going to see in the year 2003 in this Tour of Italy. Mazzoloni and Figueras in that order, but it was pretty close. What an interesting day we've had, and back in that main bunch, the riders who will still be up there in the leader's jersey, the green points jersey, sorry, green mountains jersey, Freddie Gonzalez, who keep that in tomorrow, the blue jersey for Magnus Backstedt, leader on the Intergiro competition, and the points jersey, well, we'll have to see what that comes out later on when the judges go back and count back, because they go back from 25th points right the way back for the top 15 riders. I can't give you the result on that one, but I can say, and there you can see that Lombardi takes the stage victory, and I'm sure that his teammate Cipollini, who had that horrific crash, will be the first to be on his mobile phone to congratulate him. We've still got the flat stage tomorrow and then a month of rest as far as we're concerned, but I hope that we get people like Lombardi and Cipollini and his team into the Tour de France. There's a lot of negotiations going on, but certainly for the Tour of Italy, another win for the zebra stripe team, and Lombardi having taken that stage. No change overall then. 40 kilometres tomorrow for the time trial, and I hope that those of you will join Sean Kelly and myself for that. A long look out from the Cantu, and that's the situation. You can see it on the screens of the stage victory. We're going back to more tennis on Eurosport. Do stay with us. Your commentators, David Mercer and Simon Reed, depending on which side of the channel you're looking at, will be giving you their own version and dulcet tones of the fantastic competition from Paris. But from Sean Kelly, myself and David Duffield, goodbye.